this thing said to me, oh, I didn't feel saved anymore. It was like everything was gone. That wonderful feeling, the glow that I had experienced for 6 weeks or whatever. And it was like this demon was sitting there and saying, "We back now? Are you ready to get on with your life again? You done with that foolishness, et cetera, et cetera?" And I'm thinking, what in the world? What?
Wow.
You know, and I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
That I'm having these thoughts and thinking about this, and I'm trying to pray and I couldn't pray, and everything that had been wonderful, peachy keen, you know. And so, that fortunately that we used to have a Tuesday night believers meeting. And so I went, and afterwards I talked to during the worship, couldn't do anything. And then talked to the pastor afterwards. And he said, he just, as he often did, he just kind of chuckled. And I was thinking, what are you chuckling? He said, that's normal. And I will never forget this and let this sink into everybody. It's probably the most profound thing I've ever heard. He said, on a cloudy day, like today, outside it's raining, it's cloudy. Do you ever doubt that the sun is there? Well, no. I said, why? I said, because I've been in an airplane, and when you take off in an airplane, you break through the clouds. It's horrible.
It's always a sunny day if you're in the right place.
Yeah, it can be snowing, raining, whatever. Once you break through the clouds, it's blue skies and sun. Yeah. And he says it's the same with God. He said, if you can break through the clouds and the turmoil and everything that you're experiencing, just know. And that's what faith is really about, that he is there. The sun is there. And so,
Eddie, I got to dig down on this. You're bringing up something that I think I want to hit head on. You hear about somebody who, accepts Christ, has a conversion of that. And you might hear a few months later or see something like, in the judgmental modes, well, I knew he didn't have any. I knew it was just a fad. He wasn't serious. I planted some bedding plants for my wife this last week. You know what? Those little things are fragile. In those little 6-packs, boy, you got to be so careful and just right. And then you water them, and like, oh my God, I blasted the garden hose to her, in the early days of our new life in Christ, we are fragile. We need tender, loving care. Folks, if you're asking yourself, what calling does God have for me? If you've been a Christian and established in your faith, don't be as judgmental as you are helpful to the young believer. It's so important.
Right.
So important.
So anyway, he told me to just understand that the sun is still there, even though you got the dark clouds. So God is always know that no matter how dark, how cloudy things seem, how bad, God is above those, and he's there. Yeah. So I had to do that. And so, and then we went in, next time, right after that, we went into worship, and all of a sudden that whole spirit lifted. But I did, here's something else that I did. This may be needed for somebody out there. I don't know who, but you may need this. But the one thing I did, I prayed this prayer, and I still pray it today. If I'm wavering or if I'm doubting or something, and that is, God, don't let me go. And then it's a double hook. God, please don't ever let me let you go. Because see, it's one thing to pray for God to not let you go, but you've got to watch out for yourself, because God, that's easy. God will never let you go.
Yeah.
But we can let him go. So to make that sure, just ask him to take your side too. In other words, give you whatever it takes
Yeah.
To not let him go, to keep your faith steadfast, no matter what you go through, up, down, in, out, around, boom, that you're still holding on to him.
Amen.
You know, and you've seen the movies where somebody's hanging off a cliff and will they make it? They're just barely hanging on. But if you got that assurance that I've got you,
mm-hmm.
that'll carry you through so many things. So anyway, that's our Good Saturday message, and hopefully that'll help somebody.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Are we back on?
Oh, yeah, we are.
Good.
Yeah, about 10 minutes ago,
All right.
We restored the video. And those, watching the early part of the show on rebroadcast are seeing a slideshow.
Oh, okay.
That fills in. So we have a constant video, but it's best of. Best moments when we're not picking our nose.
When we're looking the best. Yeah. Hey, this week, it's so funny. Most of the news has been about our friend Garcia. Senor Garcia. Or is it Saint?
That pillar of the Baltimore community.
Saint Garcia. Yes. And
his message of love for his wife.
Yes. For those who have been living under a rock, let me say, it's weird to me how the Democrats can pick one person.
Mm-hmm.
One person out of the hundreds, the thousands, they can find that one person that they want to make their martyr,
mm-hmm.
their saint, the poor. And he's not even a good candidate for it. But it's just weird to me
how all they got for right now.
I know, but it's just but it's just weird to me how they can get so off on this, and make it their thing. But it shows how silly they are. To be honest with you, it really, really shows how silly they are, because he's not a good candidate, and they're actually creating more problems for themselves than they need to.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, what's been going on? U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling earlier Saturday. This is a follow-up.
Yeah.
Blocking. Now, see, the first I thought, what? All of this is undermining the president and so forth and so forth. His deportation of these criminals, okay? Mm-hmm. Criminal aliens is what they're
particularly called. The Venezuelans.
Right, but exactly. It's specific to certain Venezuelans, and not even all Venezuelans, certain ones. It says U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling Saturday morning blocking, at least for now, the deportation of any Venezuelans held in North Texas. It's only in North Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not if they're in another state. The justices instructed the Trump administration not to remove Venezuelans held in the Blue Bonnet Detention Center. So it's only one detention center.
Eddie, be careful here. When they rule on a case like Roe versus Wade, that was a Texas thing, but it set a precedent which was national that becomes applicable in other cases.
Possibly.
Yeah, but this is a temporary thing.
Possibly, but right now it is for Venezuelans held at the Blue Bonnet Detention Center until further order of the court.
And if the reasoning for a deportation is because they're gang activity, so now they have to be part of MS or the Trinidad,
right,
and Venezuelan, and in here illegally without any papers.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a very small subset of the illegals in the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's who the Democrats are trying to pin their case on.
Yeah.
Fighting that.
Okay. I'll wait for more comment after you finish the story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then we'll get into it. Yeah. So Justice Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito dissented from the majority opinion.
Mm-hmm.
SCOTUS had previously said that the Trump administration could conduct deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, as long as the suspected illegal aliens are given due process to challenge their removal from the U.S.
Mhm.
In its request for an injunction, the ACLU, the anti-Christian labor union, reportedly argued that the government's notice does not remotely comply with the Supreme Court's order, according to, guess who?
Mhm.
That Banner of Truth,
Mhm.
NPR.
Oh, yeah.
The organization also reportedly said that at a minimum, the notice needed to be translated so those being notified could understand it. I mean, this is getting funnier and funny.
Mhm.
The Supreme Court urged the government to file a response to the ACLU's application. Two federal judges earlier declined to step in, and the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has not made any decision. So you've got appeals court, Fifth Circuit, and two others have decided we're not getting involved in this, and they let it go straight to the Supreme Court. And two of the justices said, we're not, what they're doing is legal, it's fine. But you had the others that said no, including Amy Coney Barrett. Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett. Who's the other one? Who are the ones that Trump? He did Barrett, Alito.
No, he did.
Oh, he didn't do Alito.
No, he did Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Barrett.
Gorsuch, that's the ones, right?
Yeah. But I've got a tie in here because, was it 2 weeks ago? There was a ruling that went Trump's way, but there were 4 dissenters, the 3 classic liberals, right, leftists,
and Barrett.
Right. And Barrett's dissent said, I still haven't seen where the United States is at war with Venezuela. Because to her rationale thinking, one of the pretexts for what Trump's doing is you have to be in a state of war with them. Now, I think she's had time here to make her rationale known to Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Roberts, who now joined with her and the 3 leftists to make a 7-vote majority, 7-2. Now, you and I have seen the 3 classic leftist women on the court be more political ideologists than truly, jurists.
Impartial, right.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's possible that Alito and Thomas are more looking at the practical reality of the ruling than the solid basis in law, in facts.
So are you also joining the naysayers?
I'm supporting what Trump's doing. I think the legal platform that he's building in law, he may have chosen the wrong one, at least in this very narrow case here. Now, if there was an act of terrorism, that would probably, and then some kind of authorization by Congress, then we'd be fine.
All right, here's my problem with all of this. Mm-hmm. Okay. If anyone comes into the country and they're not here legally, and they don't have a green card, if you try this in any other country, try it the other way. Try to go to Mexico without a visa and go to Europe. Any country in Europe, they will put you on a plane and they don't pay for it.
Okay, but Eddie,
you have to pay for it.
Here's the problem. You're thinking much like what a lot of us have seen 20, 30 years ago, where they just snuck into the country. What's happened under the Biden administration is they went in and said, I'm claiming asylum, and got their papers, including a green card. And sometimes they got welfare and they got, a driver's license and all kinds of stuff.
Right. But I would be willing to lay money on this table that these guys that we're talking about, 90% of the ones that we're talking about that they've already rounded up in this detention center, do not have green card and do not have papers. These are the ones that have come across the border.
Or we have proven that they've falsified their statements on their papers, such as, dude, you got a tattoo that says you're part of Nicaragua. You said you weren't, but you got the tattoo.
Yeah, but see, then if you're going to do that, then yes, then we would have to prove that in court.
Well,
I mean, that gives them an opportunity to.
Okay, be careful, Eddie. We cannot say due process equals a day in court, because a lot of the law in the process, due process, is an agency ruling where you get a hearing and somebody who's authorized from the agency. Well, it's an administrative ruling.
Right. Okay. All right. But then we should have an administrative court set up to quickly process these people. I
wouldn't even be careful. I wouldn't even use the word court, because you're playing into the ACLU, who thinks everybody deserves the full courtroom criminal law scenario, and they don't. Eddie, your Social Security benefits, you've seen people denied it. Was that in a courtroom down in federal? No, that was an administrative law.
Right.
Really, they might have called them a judge, but they aren't really a judge because they're not part of the judicial.
So, Dave, bottom line, because you're confusing me, and if you're confusing me, I have a feeling you're confusing people.
Right.
What are you saying? Okay. So, what should happen to these people?
Okay. All I'm saying is the language used by the Supreme Court is due process.
Okay, what is the due process?
Due process sometimes happens in the judicial branch, such as criminal law. But in this case, where you're applying for some kind of benefit, i.e. a green card, residency, asylum in that, it's up to an agency to give you due process. Where, for instance, this guy down in El Salvador.
Garcia,
Garcia. Two people testified that he was part of this gang. And due process means he has a right to respond to that to the agency. That's not a courtroom. That's not a Miranda rights. It's just simply, hey, you're denied relief from this agency because we've made a ruling that in all probable cause, you are a gang member, and which is a violation of the terms by which we grant this asylum. So that's all I'm saying is, don't in your mind conflate due process with court trial.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, but you're saying they should have some hearing by some bureau. Right,
because if they're going to present evidence, you want the opportunity to respond to that. If he had the opportunity to respond and didn't, too bad for him.
This could be a twofer. A 2-for-1.
Tell me about it.
Okay. We could set up these administrative, whatever you call them, bureaus, I guess, to have these hearings. Okay. And then if they want to, they can have a lawyer, and we could literally bankrupt the ACLU.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about it. Okay. Let's say you have 100,000 of these hearings and it costs $10,000 for each one of these hearings.
Yeah.
Eventually, the ACLU is going to run out of money.
Yeah. This is rules for radicals in reverse.
Is it?
Because what they teach in rules for radical is to flood the zone.
Right.
Just overwhelm them with this massive log of people to process.
Well, I am still a radical. I'm just a radical on the other side. But no, I mean, does it not make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, just do it. Say, okay, you win.
Right.
And who knows? I mean, maybe, what's the old saying about Trump's playing chess while the others are playing checkers?
Yeah.
Maybe he's already thinking that. Okay, have it your way. So they set up all of these things and bring them in and charge the ACLU $10,000 or whatever legal fees they're going to provide this and start charging for per then and you got to pay it. ACLU, you want to pay it, and and it ends up $1 billion. Yeah. You're welcome to pay it.
But anytime, Eddie, that you're applying for some kind of status or help from the government, whether it's concealed carry, you've done that, or food stamps, Social Security, whatever it is you want, if you're denied, that wasn't in a court in the judicial branch. It was from some agency empowered to make those decisions. Now, you can try to construe a legal case where you sue the government and take them to civil court, not criminal court, but largely we're just talking about agency rulings here when we talk due process. One of the things that's real simple, I said before, be sure when you come and take somebody to deport them, be sure you properly identify them.
Yeah. Oh, no, you're right. And
that's due process.
Right. See, the way the ACLU has been getting away with this stuff, Planned Parenthood, everybody, they have been presenting their cases as a class. And what we have to do is take the class out of it and make them individual. In other words, every single case has to be an individual case.
Right, because not everybody seeking abortion was a 13-year-old girl who was raped by her uncle.
Right.
But Planned Parenthood wants us to think the only ones getting abortions are 13-year-olds who are raped by their uncle.
Right. So, but in this case, rather than them trying ACLU bringing a case on the class of everybody at the Blue Bonnet Detention Center. No, we want Jaime Garcia, Rosario, Gonzalez, so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. You must, you bring your lawyer and show up at this hearing. Right. And then ACLU, each case, okay, here's your fee, 10 grand. Yeah. ACLU's paying it, you can literally bleed them dry if we do it that way. But we got to quit allowing them to do these things on these class things. And then it ends up costing the government or us all the money instead of.
Right. And it's important that process be followed very carefully here. Because if you can show, remember we had Kevin Adams in a few weeks ago, and I mentioned to him, I said, remember the Tulsa District Court judge who all of his criminal felony convictions, I think they were capital murder cases, had to be redone because he had to set instructions to the jury that he was told, no, you have to fix that. And he didn't. And so they went through and they said, everybody who's been in this court and been found guilty in that class action now gets a new trial. That could happen if we show the process wasn't done correctly. And if it was violated on a wide scale, that's where they get the class actions from.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So, but see, we can let them have the class action and say, oh, you know what? You're right. We will back up, Your Honor. Yeah, we withdraw. So, but now, Jose Ramirez, so-and-so Gonzalez, so-and-so Rodriguez, Sanchez. Yeah. They will show up on this date. Oh, no, we want to hold them until trial. No bail.
Now, I'd also say be careful about making the argument that he beat his wife, because a emergency order protection is granted just on a complaint. It's really a violation in my mind of our constitutional rights, which says nobody will be deprived of liberty without due process of law. You get deprived of your liberty just on a complaint because they file it, and then within a couple of weeks they have the hearing. Well, they did that, set the hearing, and the person making the complaint, the allegation against Gonzalez, didn't show up. So they made a default ruling for Gonzalez. In other words, there's no merit to it.
Right. But did you see where Good Morning America?
Tell me about it.
They had her on there, and Strahan asked her specifically, did your husband beat you or whatever? And she just sat there and she refused to. Mm-hmm. She refused to answer one way or another.
You know what that tells me? My suspicion is she's under threat from gangs.
Yeah, and so she specifically sat quietly, and he was actually trying to get her to say no. Mm-hmm. No, on ABC, they were trying to get her to say no. He wasn't, but she sat there and she wouldn't answer.
If she says no, then she faces prosecution.
Exactly, right? For perjury,
right?
Prior, right?
But if she says yes, she might not make it home from the studio.
Right. So she's caught in the mind. But you could see her face. She was scared.
This is very tough. And
no, I know. And so, but anyway, what I'm saying is, though, it left them with egg on their face because Strahan had to say, well, okay, well, we will move on to some, because there you are. You thought, we're going to get him because she's going to deny that he did it, but she didn't deny it. She didn't say he did, but you could see her face, like she was just kind of looking down, like,
Well, you remember, now this is a separate issue, but I'm going to borrow from it. The Attorney General of the state of New York, who's now under indictment, went to a very friendly local TV anchor who interviewed her, and he asked her point, did you do this? And she said, you know what? I'm not going to litigate this on a TV studio. This is going to happen properly.
You mean the DA?
No, this is the Attorney General.
Is she the Attorney General?
Yeah.
What's her name? Letitia? Are you talking about Letitia James or are you talking about somebody else?
The one who brought the charges that Trump overvalued Mar-a-Lago.
Right. She's the Attorney General?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought she was just a DA of...
No, I think Alvin Bragg was the local DA.
I thought it was backwards. Okay, maybe you're right.
Yeah, anyway, but I think what Mrs. Garcia is doing is essentially what Letitia James, being more slick about it, said, hey, not going to have this discussion here. Right. This will take place in a courtroom. Right. In other words, I don't want to answer you.
Yeah, but you could tell from the way she looked, you could tell she just didn't want to answer it because the consequences either way.
Garcia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, right. But they're both essentially in the same position.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They don't want to answer that question in the media. They want to be able to set up their own narrative.
Well, I don't think she wants to set up a narrative, period. I think she's sorry that she has to even do this. Mm-hmm. She knows the guy probably beat her or something.
Well, here's the thing.
But she doesn't want to come out with it.
Yeah, I know. Whereas Letitia, she's not going to testify in her own defense.
No.
She has a right to refuse to testify in criminal law. But I just think with the protective orders.
Oh, let's get back to Letitia real quick. I'm glad you brought her up. Mm-hmm. For those of you that don't know, the district attorney general between Dave and I, mm-hmm. we're going to verify. She probably is. Maybe she is the attorney general. But anyway, she has been
attorney general of New York.
All right. Well, she has been accused of basically falsifying documents and illegally purchasing real estate, several properties, in fact.
Particularly getting funding from the government.
Right, exactly. And so which basically are felonies. And so, but here, this is what I wanted to bring up about it. This could be really, really good. One of the properties is in Virginia.
Norfolk. It's way south of DC.
Right. And so she won't have the honor of having a New York City jury.
Ooh. Oh, and in the Southern District of Virginia, where all the Navy men are, Virginia Beach, we're talking where, Pat Robertson studios are and all that. That's not blue.
Mm-mm.
That's not blue.
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah, it's not in the DC area either. Yeah, it's not. DC.
That's you brought out an amazing point here.
Yeah.
Now let's just.
By the way, Dave's had a lot of coffee today, so I offered him some earlier. He said he better not because, and I'm glad I didn't give it to you.
But let's just says Letitia James claimed that her dad was her husband, claimed that they live in Norfolk, Virginia, way down where the Chesapeake unloads into the Atlantic Ocean. It claimed that she lives with her husband, who's her dad, down there. And that's in order to get this very favorable government subsidized low interest rate.
That's just one of them.
That's one of them.
And the one in New York, she claimed was a 4-bedroom.
Yeah, it's apartment building.
Right. And it's a 5-bedroom.
Yeah, because the little duplexes, they treat those different than anything over 4, I guess. Now all of a sudden it's commercial residential properties that, it's a big business. And she wanted that more favorable to the little mom and pop's duplex setup where you got this side income from renting the little, units around you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't remember. I think there's another one too, but she's. It's so funny because all of the big talk she was doing earlier and it's coming back to bite her.
Yeah, I mean it's bad. I thought it was bad when Oklahoma's attorney general did a little bit of that. Mike Hunter, he claimed an exemption from property tax for his house in the DC metro area while he was claiming to remain a voter living in Oklahoma City area the whole time. See, he wasn't supposed to be able to run for attorney general because he did not have the last 5 years living concurrently in Oklahoma while he's claiming homestead exemption from part of his property taxes in Virginia.
And if Letitia James was a resident of Virginia, she couldn't have run for Attorney General of New York.
Bam! You got it.
She can't have it both ways.
No. So we're looking at election fraud now.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of big. Yeah. She's in deep doo-doo. Hey, I want to clear our palate a little bit.
Yeah.
A San Francisco drag queen group called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. The first time
I remember them.
You remember them from Rush Limbaugh?
49ers games, Raiders games.
She was, Rush Limbaugh put them on my map. But anyway, it's a self-professed order of queer and trans nuns. Now,
They might have been from Rio Linda. Because that's the Oakland area.
I don't think they're truly nuns. Let's just put it that way, okay? But anyway, this is what's weird. They're sparking controversy in the days leading up to their annual transgender Easter event. This year's event, which is called No Easter Without the T, is meant to honor transgenderism, and it's featuring a children's Easter egg hunt. This is the thing that's got people upset.
Yeah.
Including a hunky Jesus and a foxy Mary drag contest and events for kids, a costume contest, encouraging attendees to come dressed in drag as hunky Jesus and foxy Mary. So these people are not only flirting with hell, they're stoking the fires. I mean, it's like, I just don't get it. I mean, I guess you truly have to saying, I dare you, God, to punish me. I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, here, me as a believer, and I walk in not a fear of God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I walk in a fear of God.
And a fear of Vicky a little bit behind that, right?
You had to just pour water on where I'm at.
Okay, fear of God.
Yeah, and yet these people is, the old saying, they fear neither God nor man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just out there.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's just
See,
I don't know. I don't understand how can you get to that point, Dave? That's what I don't understand. How can you get such a, as the Bible says, a reprobate mind that you think that this is okay?
Yeah. No, Eddie, there's a point to my little dig and joke there. After about 2 years being married, one of my groomsmen, lifelong friend, I just heard his conduct is really slipping. He's just, his behavior just was ungodly in certain ways. And I confronted him on the phone about it. And he finally says, "Oh, Dave, I know you never deal with temptation. You never have this." And I said, "Listen, I'm married to John the Baptist. She keeps me on the straight and narrow just in case God needs the night off." Because what happened to Solomon? He married strange women, Bible says, and his heart was pulled away from serving God. It is important. I mean, bad company corrupts good manners, is one translation of the Bible puts it. I think it is important. I'm sorry, that was my little thing. So I'm saying a good woman will help a good man stay straight, stay right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's my dig.
But we should just fear God.
Yeah, amen. That's
bottom line.
It is.
That's the ultimate thing.
It is. It just helps to have some good influences in your life.
Oh yeah. That should lead you to God, and then. But yeah, it's good to have good brothers, or if you're a woman, good sisters around you that you can have that relationship with. Here's something that for some of you, and I think this is really important. It's a state matter, and national and state. Yeah. And here, coming up very soon, is the Real ID. And I believe it's May 5th is when we're set. May 5th or 6th. You've got to have a real ID, not just a fake ID. No, but what's called the Real ID to travel, to fly. And so when you go to an airport, if you want to do this or that, you've got to have, but there's a caveat. I do not have a Real ID. Mm-hmm. I will not get a Real ID. Okay. I don't feel I need a Real ID. But what I've done and what you can do is get a passport. Yeah. If you want to travel and you feel the need to travel, get you a passport.
That costs you money too.
It costs you money, yeah. But at least they're not into your private business.
Here's one of the benefits, Eddie.
Or the other benefit of a passport, it doesn't just help you fly around America. It'll help you fly anywhere in the world.
Yeah, so if you need to bug out quick, you can. However, well, it's true. That passport, though, has an expiration date. I think it's like 5 years or something like that.
And what's a driver's license have?
Eddie, once you reach 65, you don't have to pay for another driver's license again in Oklahoma.
Well, that's true.
Oklahoma
yeah, that's true.
If you are getting, I'm just talking the dollars and cents part.
Right.
From what I understand, it takes like a half hour to go through all the stuff down at your tag agency to get Real ID. The tag agency's been overrun for like 3 years of people trying.
Oh yeah, and you probably need your passport or birth certificate and all that to get a Real ID. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So I just get my regular driver's license. And then if I want to go somewhere, and if I know my passport is expiring, I'll pay my $100.
Yeah.
And it's good for 10 years.
What's that?
Passport.
10 years. Okay.
Yes. 10 years.
I thought it was 5. Okay.
It used to be, it's 10 years now.
Yeah.
And if you're in good with one of the, like years ago, I needed a passport. This is like, wow, hard to say, but 25 years ago. Yeah, maybe a little more. I was trying to go to England and I realized I didn't have a passport. My passport had expired. And so what I had to do, I had a friend who knew somebody with Senator in-house office. Basically, I sent a FedEx to Senator in-house office in D.C. on Tuesday. It arrived Wednesday. They hand walked it to the passport office in D.C., got it approved, put it back in a thing. On Thursday, I had it back.
Wow, that quickly on
2 days.
I
sent it on Tuesday.
Did you pay for the speedy? Because you can pay more to get it quicker.
No, but in 2 days.
Well, yeah, right.
I was like a week or two out,
right?
So I didn't think. But anyway, it took me 2 days to get my passport. If you don't have that, it'll generally take you up to 30 days to get a new passport.
Yeah,
out of Houston. Houston's where we send ours here in Oklahoma. So give yourself, at least I would say 60 days to get your passport the other way. Just get the form down at the post office, at your post office, and then
that's because my kids all traveled, missions work and stuff like that. Had to go through all that for them.
But anyway, that's the option. If you don't want a real ID, now if you're not going to travel outside the country or anything like that, don't worry about it. Just get your regular driver's license.
If you just get in your car and go. Now, what I'm wondering is,
get in your car and go where?
You can drive to Minneapolis without real ID.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, this is just. I bet it's commercial air. Right. I'm wondering if it's going to be a commercial Greyhound bus.
I don't know. It's not that far.
I don't know. People aren't saying, or Amtrak or train.
Yeah.
And that. So I don't know. I mean, can you get on the ferry from Jersey Shore to go out to Liberty Island? Because that's commercial transport. I don't know.
Yeah. Let me say this. What bothers me is we still have, they've resurfaced the Never Trumpers. They've resurfaced big time. If you go on Facebook and read different blogs and so listen to certain radio programs, a lot of it's due because all of a sudden the stock market is tumbling.
Right.
It's lagging. It's not really tumbling, but it's got a downturn. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's not as bad as it was on Black Tuesday way, back in, 2008,
but we had a candidate for governor a few weeks ago, Mike Mazie. He said it's due for 10 to 15% correction.
Right.
And this has nothing to do with whether it's Trump or Biden.
Right.
The market does this. And is this more than 15%? No, I don't think it's much more than 10%.
Right. And it's necessary. In fact, it's healthy and good for people that want to make some money, new money.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you have not invested in the stock market before, now is a good time to get in.
Exactly.
Because it's down to a point where now, instead of just making money back, you're making new money.
Yeah.
So, but let me say this. What I've been reading, this is what made me think about it. Mm-hmm. There are people now attacking Donald Trump, saying that he is trying to sneak in the real ID, that it's him. No, it's not. The real ID first was introduced on back during the Bush administration, is when it first happened. And they kept delaying it. Congress kept delaying it. But the last time it was delayed was on December 5th of 2022 was the last time they did the delay, and they set the date for this May 6th, I believe it is.
Yeah.
May 6th. But when they set that date, it was in 2022, people. Who was the president on December 5th of 2022? Jose Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So don't buy this if you're hearing that, oh, Trump's introducing the new ID to spy on us, et cetera. No, Trump didn't do this.
Yeah, but Trump could issue another delay by executive order, and he hasn't.
Well, yes, but at the same time, when he's got all these other things that I think are more important or as important, and as I said, if you're going to travel, just get a passport.
Look, this is under the Department of Homeland Security, which is a monstrosity, needs to be disassembled because it was created post 9/11
Right.
by Bush and given massive powers.
Right.
I mean, Secret Service is part of Homeland Security.
Coast Guard.
Yeah, right. And all the border stuff. So what I'm getting at here is Homeland Security could back down on enforcement of this or recommend to Trump, hey, here's our problems we're going to have with it. I mean, to me, this is just part of the Patriot Act thing that I really have problems with. I think it undermines our liberty, our right to move about freely in the country.
I don't think anybody's stopping you from moving about freely.
Well, when you
just get a passport or get the.
That's like saying, if you got nothing to hide, then answer all of the investigators' questions. It's none of their business.
Do you? I think I know the answer, but do you have a concealed carry license?
I did not file for it. I went through the classes and everything, but no, I did not file for it.
Same grounds.
I didn't see a need for it. And then, they passed a law that basically allowed me all the liberties of it in Oklahoma. They took away those things.
So you don't ever feel you'll need to carry your firearm in another state?
Yeah, now that's part of the thing you get is if they have reciprocity.
Right.
Because, see, like Kansas, it's permitless, right? You don't need a permit. And since people from Kansas could conceal carry here and Oklahomans couldn't.
Yeah.
We were given liberties to neighboring states we weren't given to our own people. Right. And that's part of the thing. And I got to give Nathan Dahm and Sean Roberts and others credit. It was the first bill that Governor Stitt signed. Was that one?
But see, I believe even if I go to California and if I have my concealed carry and I get stopped, it's not a problem. If I don't have a concealed carry license and they find me with a weapon in my car.
Except Illinois. They have no reciprocity. It's really bad. I mean, in my classes, they flat out said, avoid Illinois. When you're traveling, avoid. Yeah. Doesn't matter how new it is and all the documentation.
Right.
Stay away from Illinois.
Yeah.
It's that bad.
Don't carry a weapon.
Yeah. And I think it's a violation of our Second Amendment rights.
No, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Somebody needs to work on that. But I'm just saying, so what I'm getting at is we've got a battle between the people who really have placed such a value on privacy and so forth, as opposed to people like me that figure if they want your information, they're going to get your information. I don't want a real ID because I don't feel a certain group of people as far as a carry license, they don't actually have your information. They run a check on your driver's license, but they don't actually, after that, they don't know what weapon you purchased or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. My thing is, it's very fundamental in this. You're assumed to be law abiding until they can prove elsewise. You shouldn't have to jump through hoops to prove that you're law abiding. It's their obligations on them to prove you're not. So, I mean, we were talking to Jeb Bush about it, David Oldham and I, and Jeb said, license is liberty. And we're like, this guy doesn't get it. He thinks the government has the right to make us jump through additional hoops, pay fees, go through all this crap to prove that we are law-abiding citizens and worthy of our constitutional rights.
Yeah. See, I look at it a little different. I look at it more or less for a safety issue, like a concealed carry class. Okay. I think there's a value in making everybody go through, depending on what type of weapon you have. Okay. Now, if it's just, a 22, 30-06, whatever, to go, hunting, whatever, then fine, give them you can do that. But it's like, for example, I brought this up on KFAQ. So do you feel that we should have to have driver's license?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you're consistent. At least a lot of people are hypocritical to me when they think that, well, yeah, you got to have a driver's license. Well, why?
Well, yeah. Now they argue, and this is so important to their principle, is that driving is a privilege, not a right. Okay. And they hammer us with that hammer is that, it's not harmful to others until proven otherwise.
I think it's both.
Well, we're treating it like it's a privilege, but do I get on a horse? Do I need a license to ride a horse? No. So I asked my dad when I failed my first road test, Dad, did you fail your first? He says, never had a road test. I said, how'd you get your driver's license? He says, well, when they finally made them required, you just filled out an application, sent in, and they gave it to you. You were assumed to be law-abiding. It just gave them something to take away from you when you proved that you were irresponsible.
Right.
Drunk driver and that.
Right.
But that's how they start. And then a little more and a little more and a little more. And that's the thing, the threat to liberty. They do it in little chunks at a time.
But see, okay, so, all right. So like, so let's say you're out here and you have an accident with somebody, okay, and you exchange info.
What info?
Exactly. That's really where I'm headed, and they have no driver's license, but so they give you some info. They just say okay. I like you and I have an accident. I say my name is Charles Edwards, right, and I live at 57 Pipe 11.
Right. I always call a police officer. Leave it to a police officer to verify their information, and
I take off,
and we get a police report.
But I leave.
But if you leave, it's called hit and run.
Right. But how are you going to find me?
Right. Well, I have witnesses. I mean, people saw it. Sometimes, right.
People don't always stop.
Yeah. Sometimes people egg your car. You come out in the morning. What do you do?
Exactly.
Right.
So what good are licenses if they're going to do that anyway?
Right. Yeah. I don't even believe in marriage licenses.
How about a pilot's license?
Yeah. Again.
We don't need one.
Well, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Well, I don't believe in marriage licenses.
I had watch that. Newsflash.
Yes.
David Van Rissingham does not believe in marriage license.
It's real simple. T.W. Shannon and I, right after he became speaker, he and I were in the Secretary of State's office, and I made my pitch to him. And I said, look, T.W., I don't believe that the state has the authority to give people permission to get married. He said, we don't get permission. I said, it's called a license. What is a license? It is permission to do that which is otherwise unlawful. Thought about it. He says, well, what do you think we should do? I said, does a baby need a license to be born? No, we certify it.
Not yet.
Right. We certify it to protect their rights. And a marriage should be certified, just like we have a title to our car, title to our house, to protect our rights. I think it serves the public good. I don't have a problem with that. But a license. Oh, you got to go through blood tests. Oh, you got, you know.
You and I, we're pretty close on it. I would argue with Pat Campbell about that.
Yeah.
Because so for example, well, what about, property rights and so forth?
Yeah.
I say you can do all of that through wills and trusts and stuff. If I want my wife, I just name her on a quit claim deed, which everybody should get, by the way.
Yeah.
Quit claim deed versus a will. Wills.
Absolutely.
Wills are just going to cost you still money. You still have to go through probate. So forget a will, get a quit claim deed, instant, boom, transfer. Okay. Or trusts are good. But anyway, but it's funny, Pat and I used to have, and even, I can marry, bury, and baptize. You're a licensed minister, aren't you?
I let that go.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I've done weddings, I'm licensed and so forth. So I always say that I'm like you. I don't believe that you need a wedding license.
Did Isaac need one to marry Rebecca?
There's there. You just stole my right there, Isaac and Rebecca.
What did he do? Tell me about their process of getting married.
He took her in his tent and he knew her.
Yeah.
And that was it. They were Mr. and Mrs.
The Greek word koinonia means fellowship. It also means intercourse. It all depends on the context, how they're going to translate it from the Greek. I know that was a story in Hebrew.
But that's exactly right. I use that same analogy. Like, when my son was marrying his wife, I said, Eli came out of his tent and he looked, and there he saw his wife on a camel, and everybody starts cracking up because there she is. There she is in her gown and everything, and they're picturing her on a camel, And so, but that's exactly what happened. And all of a sudden, we decide you got to have a license to get married, to transfer property and everything. If you need that, deeds, bank accounts, et cetera, just do it through wills, deeds, as I said, quit claim deed and trusts, contracts, do a contract. In fact, nowadays, it's so funny that two people living together, right, can have more rights than a married couple if they don't have a will or something. So for example, let's say, especially in the homosexual community, they almost have more rights in many cases than the heterosexual couples. But basically, if you just do a contract that anything happens to me, everything transfers to this person.
That's true.
At the bank, life insurance, et cetera, et cetera. You can name whoever you want because you're doing it of your free will.
Right. And this is why, people have asked me, about homosexual marriages and all that. I said, look, from a scriptural sacramental thing, I won't call a sin a sacrament. Okay. But I will say this, people have a right to enter covenants. Jonathan and David had a covenant that David honored to Jonathan's descendants, even after Jonathan was dead. I'm not saying they were homosexuals. No. I'm saying they wanted to share in each other's blessings and in needs. And they were their
best friends.
Yes. So in that capacity, could a couple of people, whether it be straight or gay, could they do? Absolutely. I actually happen to agree with Obama when he said, I believe in civil unions. That's all it is. It's what Jonathan and David had.
And David had with several other women.
I don't have a problem scripturally with the fact that David had more than one wife or many other patriarchs. Do I, honor the laws of my state and nation? Yes.
We have to, yeah.
But I don't over spiritualize something that is clearly a secular thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you go to Africa and you run into it,
Now, there is a natural law. You know what the punishment for bigamy is? For having two wives? 2 mother-in-laws. There you go. Boom.
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
Yes.
Yeah, but well, don't forget the father-in-law. Sometimes that's even the one with a shotgun.
That's true.
Them
that's
fighting
true.
over. Well, this one's getting more than that one. But no, you're exactly right. Like I always said, this is what I do in my marriage ceremony. I said, this piece of paper that you call a license from the state, that's not going to keep people together. It's are you committed to each other?
Yeah.
Are you going to stick it out through thick and thin before God and these people? That's the real covenant. Like you said, the wedding license means nothing. That's a piece of paper. It's basically a legal contract is all that is.
Yeah, I'm going to say 13 years ago, I ran Rick Santorum's campaign, and I really demagogued the Ron Paul movement. I mean, I just, all the lawlessness we're going to have here. But I made friends with a few people from the Ron Paul movement. Nathan Dahm was one of them. Richard Engel's another. There are a few others. But it was this marriage issue that really where I found out how libertarian I was. And that's just who I am now. They use a term called statist to label their enemies. The ones that think, we got to have laws. Can't be a society without a government. And I'm like, really? No.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I don't know whether it's just something about me. I'm not the one that's always trying to defy the law.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who's always trying to find loopholes.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, in this case, I don't want the real ID, but I want to fly. Mm-hmm. And I've had a passport all the time anyway, so I'm just going to use my passport.
Yeah.
If somebody tells me, you can't go in this door, like through this and this, I'm going to try to find another door. That's how I think. And so some things I think are good, like, the gun laws. I actually like having a carry license. I'll tell you what I really like about it is when I get stopped by the police for speeding or whatever, I hand up my carry license and my driver's license, and 9 times out of 10, they give me a warning versus a ticket. Oh no, we lost our feed.
Here's a real problem, Eddie. If you need to go down to the Social Security office, if you need to go to the federal courthouse downtown Tulsa, you can't get in without a real ID. So it's not just about air travel. It's any federal institution where there is a security check. Which the Social Security office is that way.
Social Security, yeah.
And metal detectors, they're at the federal.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this. Here's a lawsuit coming.
Yeah.
Does that mean that all of the illegal aliens that are down at the Social Security getting their checks can't get in there?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you can still do things online.
No, but if you can't get into the social, because one of the problems, if you ever go to the Social Security office, it's full of let's put aliens. I won't say illegal.
I was there twice this last summer. I did not see a lot of Latino. I saw a lot of black. I saw a lot of white.
Because the complaints I get all the time from people is that it's overcrowded by a lot of Hispanic, whether citizen, non-citizen, I don't know, but that's a problem there.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah. My problem with this right now is the constitutional right to petition government for redress of grievance. If you can't even get in the building, you can't even walk into the U.S. Capitol now without a real ID because they do security checks. The People's House.
What about black people? They can't even get driver's license. How are they going to get a real ID?
Yeah, they can't even vote if we have voter ID.
They can't even vote. So how are you expecting them to get to the...
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. I got into a big thing
But
this
yeah,
week.
this is a real problem. My homeless buddy out in California called me last night, and he said, like, really, this snuck up on me. And then you said it, and God, it's true. And which means now in Oklahoma, the tag offices are going to be packed full for the next couple of weeks for people hurrying up.
Getting their real ID.
Because we heard it was coming 20 years ago, and we kept getting delays. And our state fought it for the longest time. Kay Beach, who's legislative assistant for the floor leader, John Eccles, who I hope, John, you got to come on in. Anyway, she's been fighting it like crazy. And then they found out our Department of Transportation just fully complied, regardless what the legislature said. They just re-upped all their process and everything, so they would be compliant once it's required. Our agency just ignored the legislature.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a real problem.
But just to set everybody straight, this has been set since 2022 under Biden's administration. They finally said December 5th May 6th of this year is going to be when it goes into effect.
Yeah, so. And I'm having a problem with Trump because you're agreeing with it, Donald. You're agreeing with it.
Okay.
You got to make him own it too. Because Biden couldn't change it now if he wanted.
Well, no,
can.
he couldn't. Yeah. Well, who knows? I mean, maybe he doesn't see it as a big deal as you are.
That's the thing. When you're invested in your job, you're working, you look for the state to be the answer to the problem. What did Ronald Reagan say when he first came? He says, government's not the answer. Government's the problem.
See, that's how you look at everything. I don't look at it that way. I don't see him seeing it that way. I think he's saying, I don't see a big problem here. If you don't want it, get a passport.
You don't like this document jumping through hoops? Go jump through the other hoops.
Now, the attack on him from the other side is that he's trying to force those poor black folks into getting driver's license. In other words, that they won't have any excuse when it comes to voting.
Oh, you switch to the voting issue. Okay.
Yeah. That's the accusation he's getting from the Democrats. Mm-hmm. The Democrats now are not for this going into effect.
Right.
So, but their argument is from the other side that it's unfair to all these poor black folks and Hispanic folks and everybody else that can't afford to get the real ID. Mm-hmm. Why not? Or they don't have time to go down there, or they're too stupid to be able to do it, or whatever excuse they can come up with. They just don't want them to have to go through this. So that's what the problem is.
Yeah, and
I mean, in a way, I have to agree though, because so you're telling me that they're incapable of going down to the DMV to get a driver's license, but they're savvy enough to get a plane ticket and make it to the airport and go through all of that to get on an airplane to travel to another state or another country.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? It makes their argument look stupid, right? But anyway, that's I've got another kind of totally off the subject, and then we can get to clear our palate again. Then we can get back into this is a kind of a fun one. This is the kind of stuff Pat Campbell and I used to have real fun with. Arguing about. Bill Belichick, who is 73 years old.
Yeah.
Has got this fine young thing.
She's a honey.
Jordan Hudson.
Okay.
Age 24.
Yes.
It says, good work if you can find it.
Isn't she a beauty queen too?
Yes. And she's competing for Miss Maine.
Okay.
But the reason they're in the news this time is not because of the age difference. Mm-hmm. They're in the news because she is competing against a trans contestant Isabel St. Cyr. And it makes it really newsworthy and interesting as well because of Trump's fight with Maine Governor Janet Mills. So it's kind of like the convergence of, there's all kinds of stuff going on here. You know, you got Trump against Janet Mills, and you got Bill Belichick, his girlfriend against a tranny. And this, you know, and it's people, you got people that hate Bill Belichick and people that love Bill Belichick. And so anyway, it's just kind of a really, really interesting story here. But she was the first runner-up last year. So now she's running again for Miss Maine. So we'll see how that turns out. She's a pretty girl. She's an attractive young lady, and 24, and he's 73. So that's 49 years difference. That's nothing. It's all in the mind. It's all in the mind.
Yeah. By the way, that's,
and since they don't need a marriage license, according to you, Dave,
and Maine's really caught up in this DEI stuff. They're caught up in this transgender.
Oh yeah,
competitiveness.
Oh, I predict the trans person is going to win.
Yeah,
I'm calling it right now. Watch.
Now it's too late for this. But what the Miss USA pageant could have done is the current Miss Maine, if they'd made her Miss America, then the first runner-up assumes the title of Miss Maine for the rest of that, and then is no longer eligible to run.
But Miss USA and Miss America are two different.
Yeah. So is this the Miss USA pageant? Or is it the Miss America pageant?
You know, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Because one of my customers, a longtime customer of mine, is a former Miss Oklahoma, but she was first runner-up. And then Chantel Smith became Miss America.
Yeah, I remember Chantel.
So then, you know, Megan Bradfield becomes Miss Oklahoma, which means she can't run again. And she only got to serve just like part of the year. And
she was ticked.
Oh, no, I don't think she is. I think she's honored. She's a sweet lady.
Yeah, but see, what's funny is nobody will ever remember her as Miss Oklahoma because they'll only, like me, I only remember Chantel Smith.
Right. Yeah. And so anyway, but that's one of the scenarios that they could have got around to basically take her out of the competition.
I've always thought the Miss USA girls are prettier than the Miss America.
It's considered a little more carnal, a little more. Yeah, it's more about the body, the look and that, whereas the Miss America, more traditional in that, but it's more about their talent. They score the talent more, personality, the interviews and stuff. Or at least that's what they claim. But the real highest stature one is the Miss America pageant. And Donald Trump owned the Miss USA pageant for a while. You know, so anyway. By the way, similar to this story is the whole Harvard losing not just their grants.
Was it 9 million?
Yeah, but their tax exempt status.
Right. Which is even worse, yeah.
And yeah, academia is just blowing the cork. And I'm thinking, I'll bet they really had a problem when Bob Jones University lost all their federal funding. Oh, no, they didn't. Why is that, you ask? Because Bob Jones University just believed in this, what they call a biblical concept of you marry within your race, right? White folk weren't allowed to date on campus Asians or Black, and vice versa. You know, it was basically this segregation. And was it a violation of the rights of people to, you know, associate with who? Yeah, I believe so. But they signed up to go to that private university. I think this is stupid. I completely disagree with the biblical context. But they lost federal funding over it. And did Harvard scream and whine about it? I don't think I heard a beep out of them.
I bet it was Harvard lawyers that brought the case.
Oh, yes. There you go.
But here's I don't want to leave this too quickly, the Bob Jones thing. You know what that started the policy, don't you?
Tell me.
In the 50s, this goes all the way back to the 50s, there was an Asian student that fell in love with an American student.
Who was
Bob
Caucasian?
Jones, who was Caucasian, right? A Caucasian and an Asian. An Asian and a Caucasian. That's a weird how that, okay. Anyway, you see, we're, mine's too easily diverted. Anyway, and the Japanese, it was Japanese, by the way, I'll just get more specific. The Japanese parents pitched a fit and read the riot act to the administration of Bob Jones University. And that's what brought in the no mixed dating, no mixed relationship policy. It had nothing to do with black and white. Fast forward 20 years, 30 years, actually, maybe it was 40. I don't know. When did they, when did McCain run? Was it in the 2000s? Was it?
08.
Oh, yeah. So we're looking 40 years later, almost 50. No, actually, I was 50 years later. Yeah, it was 50 years later. John McCain decides to run for president, and it becomes an issue. Or was it Bush? Maybe it was W. I think it was W.
I don't know, but to Bob Jones losing the right for their students to get student loans or FAFSA, Pell Grants, and that happened, I think, in the 80s. It's 80s or 90s.
Well, that could be. I don't know. But what I'm saying is the whole policy. I'm talking about the policy.
Yeah.
And they attacked. The attack came against Bob Jones because they endorsed. Well, I think they endorsed McCain and Bush. But anyway, when Bush was running is when it came to a head, and it came out then that basically, because they were seen as a racist university, basically, and so, but it had nothing to do with black-white relationships. It was an Asian family that actually brought the suit against them. And so that's when they introduced that policy. Yeah. I wanted to clear that whole matter up, just to show how these things can be misconstrued by the liberal media. I mean, I wouldn't even call them liberal, because liberal is truly free. The progressive, demagogic left. Yeah.
Now, let me just really wrap this thing up. I know you're half black, right? Half German. But okay. My son-in-law. Yeah, thank you. There you go. Hail Elon.
Yeah, mein Herr.
But my son-in-law is about 80% black. He's actually got as much Belgian blood as my daughter does.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, at any rate, my daughter, I remember in high school, before she even met Khalil, she said, "Dad, what do you believe about mixed marriages?" And I said, "Yeah, Christian ought not be in a mixed marriage." And I said, "Now let me explain this." I said, "Let's open the Epistle of Peter." He said, "But you, brethren, are a holy nation, a royal priesthood, a peculiar set apart people." Mixed marriages from a Christian perspective is marrying a non-Christian.
Right.
And Paul agrees with Peter when he tells the Corinthians, do not be unequally yoked, right? So if, in fact, the Bible says that in Christ we are a holy nation, marrying within Christ, there is no mixed marriage. Bob Jones University recanted the policy in 2000. It's no longer a rule at Bob Jones campus. So they don't teach it. They don't enforce it. And that, do some people still believe it? Yes. I remember an employer of mine one time, I was running Phil Graham's campaign, and he says, "Well, I can't support him." I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, because of his wife." I said, "What's wrong with her?" "Because she's Asian." He said, "She doesn't look like an American." I said, "What does an American look like?"
Look like an American.
Oh, he got mad at me. And he had an employee who's Filipino just 30 feet away. And he's like, quiet. I don't want to offend her. You know, it's just a funny thing.
Hypocrite.
Well, in here's the thing, and you see this where you used to see outright overt racism. Like, what did they call you first day in the campus of Texas Tech?
Spook.
Spook, yes. You don't see it like that. They couch their racism, or they'll act really nice to you to your face, but their attitude is, you're not really an American. You know, and that's the way Phil Graham's wife was treated by my employer.
Yeah, and as I deal with in my book, it's really not about race. That's I probably should have made that a subtitle too. I think I already have one subtitle, but it's really not about race. It's about class, and it's just they use race as an identifier.
Yeah,
and because you can be white and you can pretend to be of another class if you're Black, because it's associated with ghetto and lower class, you could not pretend like somebody else. So if you're from the South and you're Black, you couldn't change your dialect. You couldn't change your dress and then pretend you're from high society. If you're a white person from the South, you work on your diction, your dress and everything, and you could pretend that you were some, son of some rich Southern gentleman or something, and fool people, and they would buy it, and you instantly move into the next class, and your kids on and on from there.
What happened to you in South Africa? They thought they were just treating you like crap until you spoke. Right. And your speech immediately identified you as an American.
Right. And once I was an American, I wasn't Black anymore.
Yeah. What do you know?
I know. It was weird. Or like Ernie Holmes, when they asked him, why are you...
Larry Holmes.
Larry Holmes, yeah. Why are you... why would you fight in South Africa being Black? He said, because if you're Black and rich, you ain't Black.
Yeah.
And it was truth. A lot of wisdom in that. That is true. That's why, that's what makes me so upset, because you look at Michael Jordan, Eddie Murphy, Oprah, all these people, nobody, they stay at, they eat at, they hang out at the most exclusive places.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not going to find them hanging out with ghetto people from the hood, but they'll get on, some of them. I think of Oprah, Michael Jordan, Eddie, those guys. You don't ever see them talking this Black nonsense.
Yeah, Jasmine Crockett's been running her mouth lately. That's about all she runs. But she's from a very exclusive, very wealthy private prep school.
Yeah, she went to Rhodes.
And you
Rhodes
listen
College.
to her talk. She talks like she just got out of the cotton fields outside of Greenwood, Mississippi.
Well, no, it depends on who she's speaking with.
Yeah.
You see, if she's in a public and it's to her advantage, she will speak very clearly and succinctly and very white.
Yeah.
But now if you get her in another situation where, not as advantageous to be sounding white, then she get down. She'll talk hood.
Remember this freshman Black senator from Illinois that Harry Reid finally said, yes, this Mr. Senator Obama was well-spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was well-spoken for a Black man.
Yeah. He's not like those others.
Yeah.
But anyway, where were we?
Well, I think we wrapped that one up. We talked about Maine. We talked about Harvard. A couple of state things I want to talk about. Okay. The state Republican Party here in Oklahoma might actually get shut down by the federal government.
Ooh.
Yes. It seems a former state party chair, or a few of them.
Did we mention him in our
No,
discussion?
David McClain's administration got hit with, basically was found to be out of compliance with record keeping And I think it had to do with payroll taxes for state employees. I don't know, a bunch of stuff. He claimed it was because Mike McCutcheon was dying of cancer and nobody could get into his
account
laptop.
Oh,
Yeah, he's the reason why. The woman you gave me, she made me do it, right? Anyway, but now I think we're hit with it's a 6-figure sum, like $170,000 the state party has to pay in fines to Federal Election Commission or FEC. Anyway, and they set it up to be $7,000 and some dollars every month.
$7,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you wonder what Nathan Dom's been doing? Well, he's got to raise that money as state party chair, and he's not running again. Right. Whoever comes in is going to be straddled with this. And then you got to have the money to run the party, and then maybe pay yourself or somebody else to actually run the office. So Ferlin Kearns announced on Facebook, he said, look, we can't do it. They'll come lock the doors. They will, get a court order, and they could just shut us down as a party. And Al Gerhardt, who was in last week, I talked to him last night. He said he's talking to the executive director right now that Nathan Dom has in place, who's running Stan Stevens. He was sat in that chair a few weeks ago. Stan agrees with my thought that I think what might happen at that point is perhaps some other entities, maybe our DC delegation, members of Congress, U.S. Senate, might get a new charter and put themselves in charge of the party. Because they tried to do that. James Lankford was part of a deal that changed how the party was run so that the governor, the elected statewide official
had some oversight,
would have total control.
Right.
It wouldn't be members going to their precinct meeting and then their county convention. It wasn't going to be a bottoms up anymore. It's going to be a top down. And that could very well happen. This is something a lot of nonprofits do when they are insolvent, is they just fill out new incorporation and continue on. It's a form of filing bankruptcy, if you will. It's just the entity ceases to be operational that owes all the money. And what's at risk here is truly a bottoms-up grassroots political movement. And when you say, hey, the grassroots now runs the party, really? What does that mean? Might be nothing. And but Nathan Dom has some serious things to answer for here. Remember when Stan was in, I said, it's important that we have openness so that people in leadership can do their duty. If the chairman's not going to call a meeting, the vice chair has to have the list of who the members of the panel are to hold the meeting. Nathan Dom was supposed to give the delegate list for this upcoming convention 2 weeks away to the candidates, to people like Stan. Greg Hendricks, the retired Marine officer, he's running for state vice chair right now, according to my talking to Al Gerhardt. It's been done. They haven't received the delegate list. How can the delegates know who to vote for if they hadn't had any connection with these people? And Greg Hendricks, Stan Stevens, Charity Lynch, Wayne Hill, most of these people have been in the studio, in this room. They can't do their job effectively campaigning and running. But then again, Nathan didn't run until the last 5 days. And I really have a problem. I thought Nathan was a different kind of leader. I'm sorely disappointed. So I just need to give that follow-up because, folks, there are, I believe, 3 people running for vice chair, and Greg Hendricks is being the newest candidate in that mix. There's a woman from Oklahoma City, and then Wayne Hill, the incumbent, running for vice chair. For chair, We have Charity Lynch, who is a national committee woman, beat Pam Pollard.
She's running for the state now.
She's running. Yeah, she's still holding one office. And I guess, according to Stan Stevens, the RNC said it's okay if she holds both offices. They're not going to have a problem.
What office is she holding?
She's national committee woman, which is, remember that 4-panel central committee, the chair, vice chair, national committee man, national committee woman. She's going to hold 2 of those if she gets elected state party chair. And then you've got, you did have John Bennett, but shortly after Greg Hendricks came in and told us what he had, John Bennett just backed out, or at least that's the report was made. The funny thing is, now I'm getting reports this week that John Bennett's been traveling with Charity Lynch to different county meetings. The funny thing is, Charity Lynch, according to my sources, I'll just say it's Al Gerhardt, detective, he had heard from others, including Stan Stevens, that John Bennett is not even being allowed in the building, but Charity Lynch can. What Al Gerhardt told us last week is John Bennett may be a last minute and a la Nathan Dahm type put his name up. And it could be that he bowed out for a number of weeks, hoping that these claims, stolen valor, might die down. We won't talk about John Bennett anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It worked for Nathan Dahm. Nathan did not face any serious challenges. Even though Nathan Dahm, he told me himself, he knew 7 days before that he's going to run. But 5 days before, he sat there at a forum for the candidates, did not announce, did not take his place, did not allow people to question him. It's just low class. Just low class. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Nathan. I think it's low class. Okay.
Okay.
So that's party news in Oklahoma, and there's a lot of it. And in 2 weeks, we've got the convention. If you haven't signed up ahead of time, you may have lost your $20 discount. It's $100. You sign up by a certain date, $120 at the door. The good news, according to Stan, is we signed this contract for event management. I think it was, again, David McLean has signed a 5-year deal without consulting the state committee, as far as I understand. And that's what straddled us with a lot of the expense. So hopefully Stan, if he wins, right now he's probably who I'm supporting, Stan Stevens. It's for party chair. Hopefully we can get that price down to around 50 or 60 max.
Yeah, he seems like a sound investment, Stan does. We've been putting people in, to me, that have just been, I don't know if populist is the right term, but people that sound good.
Yes.
They
talk a good game.
They talk a good game. But if you really look at their background and all of their expertise and everything, the skills aren't there. The skills that you have to have certain skills to run an operation like a state party, even the local, Tulsa County party.
Oh, yeah. Those county, Oklahoma and Tulsa County, very difficult because you don't get paid at all. I will fall back on the famous words of Pat Buchanan describing Jesse Jackson. The only thing that man's ever run is his mouth. And that's the problem. We're putting people in charge who can do nothing more than run their mouth.
Right.
So anyway, so that's the news there. I don't know what else.
Moving to sports a little bit. Did you happen to watch the WNBA draft?
No, I didn't.
Probably not. Yeah.
No.
It was interesting. No surprise at the top. Paige, I can't think of her last name.
The gal from Connecticut.
She was number one. So no surprise. And the I can't think of any of these girls' names, but the young lady from TCU. She went, I think she was number 11, 10 or 11. But anyway, the reason I bring this up, there's this, I don't know if you call it a trend, a style, a fashion trend lately, but it's women or girls, men's blazers or suit coats with nothing underneath. The first time I saw this was at the Country Music Awards, and this woman who won Artist of the Year, she was the Country Artist of the Year. I don't even know her name right now. She gets up and she's wearing like a suit, but it's like a men's suit. And I was noticing, I was trying to figure out, is that a flesh-colored shirt or t-shirt underneath, or is that her skin? And then all of a sudden you notice that she has to hold this thing to her. And a couple of times she didn't hold it tight enough, and you were seeing some boobage. Yeah. And she had to be real careful, or they would have had to put the little blur up there.
Yeah.
And so at the WNBA draft this week, a bunch of the girls had these same jackets on, same deal, with nothing underneath. And I'm thinking, who comes up with these ideas, these styles? I mean, this is just, but the one who won the night as far as the most attractive, and she really does. You wouldn't see her when she's playing basketball. You wouldn't think that but she was just a knockout. And that's the young lady from TCU. You have her name?
Yes. That would be Haley Van Lith.
Haley Van Lith. That's right.
Power guard.
Right.
Point guard.
Point guard. Yeah. Power. Anyway, Haley has a story. She, I believe, initially started at, was it Tennessee? She transferred to LSU. She was at LSU year before last. And this last year, she transferred to TCU, took them to the Elite Eight, and then was out. But she really made a difference. I mean, the girl is good. She's a good player, and as a point guard. And but anyway, her outfit, everything, the way she had her hair, makeup, everything. I mean, she was a knockout. She's a beautiful girl, and she really stole the show. Some of these other young, and the other one was this young lady. I think she's part African or African descent, not African American, African descent. She went to University of Southern California. Number 3, who was number?
Yeah, Kiki Iriafen.
Yeah, there you go.
Kiki.
Yeah, she had a beautiful gown on. I mean, you'd have thought she was at the Academy Awards. I mean, this is beautiful.
Good for her.
Beautiful full length.
Good for her.
And Haley had a sports coat, but she had something underneath and then a skirt. And I mean, she was duded up, let me tell you. So there were a few of the young ladies who really looked good. I mean, they knew how to dress in public. But the others, I don't know what's wrong with these girls.
Now,
there's no need for
the number 2 right after Paige Bucher.
Paige Bucher, yes, sir.
Yeah, Paige Bucher. There's UConn.
They pronounce it Becker, but
Becker.
I
Okay.
say,
yeah, okay. Paige
but
Becker.
I think it's Bucher. But
okay. So number 2 was from France. Not even part of our college system. They don't list a college. Is Dominique Malonga. And
they had several foreigners.
Right. The number 5 pick was Justy Josite from Lithuania. Lithuania is a big basketball country.
Yeah.
You know, and
she's this tall, thin.
Right. And then you had Egza Sivka from Slovenia. All of those are in the top 10.
Yeah.
So the WNBA is definitely going global in their draft pick.
Big surprise, one of the big surprises this year is how many Caucasian females were drafted. And I think it's good for the league because, see, these black girls had gotten this attitude where, like, we own this sport.
Sure.
And they're starting to dictate to others how this is supposed to run, and with just attitudes and everything.
It's a cultural disease coming out of South Carolina.
Well, not just South Carolina, but just in general. You talk about University of South Carolina.
Loudmouth lesbians.
Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, but not just in South Carolina.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, that was the other thing too. How many boyfriends?
Oh, there we go.
These girls had.
It's a marketing thing. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Because what's going to save them is successful marketing.
Yeah, yeah. So this year, a lot of heterosexual Caucasian young women were drafted into the NBA.
In various ways, they are showing their femininity.
Right.
They're not trying to pretend that they're guys.
Right. Right. Exactly. So I think what's her name? Caitlin Clark.
Yep.
Started something last year.
I think she triggered something. I don't know
isn't that the same thing
as
starting?
I think
Triggering it would be the start of a shot.
I think she's just being who she is.
She's just being cantankerous.
No, I think it goes to, was she intentionally trying to mastermind? I don't think so.
No, that's not what I meant.
Yeah. Okay.
It says she was the genesis of a movement that we're seeing now a year later.
Right.
Developing.
Yeah.
That's all.
See,
because please cool yourself.
Sure. I thought you were done.
I'm gonna start dropping something in your drinks. What happened with Caitlin, she was selling out arenas everywhere she went as a visiting team.
Right.
In other words, teams might be playing in something like what's the place at the fairgrounds, the Coliseum? Pavilion.
Yeah.
They were playing in places like the Pavilion.
Where you can still smell the horse manure.
Well, when Caitlin shows up, they have to move to the BOK.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you go from 3,000 to an 18,000 arena.
Yeah.
And somebody started, and a big part of it is the NBA. I think we talked about this before. The NBA subsidizes the WNBA. And these guys are saying, hey, we're tired of paying for these women. You know, you got to make it on your own.
Yeah.
And so, and don't down Caitlin Clark or you have to stop this. You need to make your own money. They were riding on buses before Caitlin last year because of the new income. They're flying now. Yeah. And staying in first class hotels and so forth.
And these aren't just 1 or 2 hour bus trips.
Right. Oh, no, right. And so now we've got you've got this big thing. Dallas got the first pick with Paige Bucher and or Becker or whatever. But anyway, and so now they've already moved from where they normally played to the Reunion Arena or the big basketball where the Mavericks play when Indianapolis shows up and they've got 2 games, so they're gonna have to have those there. Sure. But I have a feeling that with Paige, she's gonna be her own star, so you'll start getting big games in other towns, and once that happens, boom, it'll be up. Okay. It's good for little girls. Yeah. It's good for little girls to have something to look forward to.
Yeah. Just to clarify, because I think we're on the same page. When you say what Caitlin started, my only point was, I think it surprised a lot of people, and maybe including Caitlin Clark. But what we're seeing now is more organized, thoughtful strategy because we stumbled on something.
No, I don't think that's what I meant at all. No, Caitlin Clark, by who she is and sticking with it.
Yeah.
Attracted so many people.
Exactly.
And so.
Right.
So, yeah. So they're going to follow that now.
Right.
Let's put it this, they're going to build on it. They're going to build on it. They
became believers when they saw how well it worked out.
Right.
And now they are deliberately, and it's not just the organization. The athletes are saying, you know what? Me being proud of my femininity, whether it's being ladylike, being, quote, sexy, being, not a dyke, if you will.
Well, I don't know, because so many of them, the way they were dressed, again, that's what I'm saying. There were, most of them were just dressed weird, with these, like I said, these blazers with no
girls who can't feel comfortable in being pretty settle for being sexy.
Well, it's not even sexy though. I don't know what kind of look you'd have to see.
Well, you described it as rather revealing, and that's right. I didn't see it.
No, I know. Yeah. So no, it's imagine a girl wearing a sport coat and nothing underneath their sport coat.
Yeah.
You just got, and it's like, it's too big anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a big giant. Did you ever see Talking Heads? Do you know the group?
Sort of. That was an 80s band, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the lead singer, but there's a thing where he wears this giant suit. It's a white suit and this
big shoulder pads.
Big shoulder, but I mean it's like extra large. Yeah. And he's doing this movement, and this thing is just going like this while he's doing, and so that's kind of how it just looks awkward and weird, and be a girl, be a feminine.
That's the best thing about this, Eddie.
Yeah.
Is, you know what? Just being a women's thing and being more inclusive, less about fitting in with the South Carolina culture. And I don't mean the state, I mean the lesbian culture there.
But they're not the only ones, though.
No, I know they're not, but they became the NCAA champions with heavy doses of that, including their head coach.
Right. They got killed. They got killed in that.
By UConn, right. But here's the thing I'm thinking, business-wise, Eddie. This would be a great time for the NBA to spin off and separate it as its own entity. Get investors to buy, because there might not be a better opportunity to get their price.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And then the LeBron James of the world don't have to worry about subsidizing them anymore.
No, you're right. And I think you're right. I think the time is right, because it's nothing as cute as watching Caitlin Clark. She's the Michael Jordan of women's basketball. She has reinvented the game audience-wise, when she leaves. Just to see these little, we're talking 8 to 10-year-old girls all there with their jerseys and this, and she walking around, she's signing all these things. And, if Paige and some of the Haley and the other thing about Haley Van Lith, I don't know if you saw any of the videos, but when they made it to the Elite Eight, there was a press conference, and she breaks down crying. And every time she talks, she's in there giving a testimony about how God has, and not just God, but Jesus, how important he is in her life. And she was almost suicidal. She talks about how she almost committed suicide because she wasn't doing well and had real problems with her self-image and so forth. And then she got, had the aid of a sports psychologist, but also her faith brought her through it. And she's a totally different. Here's the really funny part too. Her boyfriend is a guy. He was a rookie with the NFL last year.
Oh, okay.
So there's some great stories there. So it's funny that I'm the WNBA fan in the family now. My wife won't watch it.
Yeah, well, see, I'm kind of that way about the college women's softball.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, the Sooners' dominating years are about done. They got beat 2 out of 3 by Tennessee in Norman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I watched them beat Alabama. That was a good one.
They split with Alabama, but it was in Alabama.
Okay. Yeah. Right. I saw the second game then when they beat them there.
Yeah. So they've lost 5 games, which is, they're definitely a top 10 team, but it's more of a pack.
Well, yeah.
It's mostly SEC.
Yeah. And they may be rebuilding too. We don't know what's.
Yeah.
Because what's interesting, the game they won was actually won by this freshman who hit a home run. and I felt sorry for the pitcher for Alabama because she was the pinch pitcher. See, I guess girls' baseball is men's baseball in college. Can they put players back in once they take them out?
It's a little more nuanced, but you do sometimes see for a particular batter, the right fielder come in and pitch.
Oh,
and they'll just swap.
You're talking about pinch hit or pitch?
Well, you said a pinch hitter.
Right. Usually when you get a pinch hitter, you take out the player.
Right.
And then once they're out, then they put somebody new in to play that position. Because once you're out, you're out. Well, but in softball.
Yeah, but when you're on offense and they change the batting order, we don't often get to see the fact that they might have moved 4 or 5 people.
All right, let me finish. Let me tell you what. Mm-hmm. They took a pitcher out and they put her back in. They took her out, had another girl pitch.
Right.
That OU scored the runs on.
Right.
And then they tried to put the other pitcher back in.
Right. Yeah. What we see is somebody on the batter's circle on deck, and all of a sudden they're pulled and somebody else there. To us is simply she's out, she's in. But the manager is actually moving around 6 or 7 people sometimes, could be that much, and picking somebody else on the team to remove from the roster. And it's just a shift. And then when the other team's up there in the field, they'll shift again.
Right. But you can't do that because you have the pitcher out and a new pitcher in there. Mm-hmm. In other words, once the pitcher's out, she's out.
Yeah. When you're on the field, you can't get away with that kind of stuff.
Right. So the pitcher, they have a new pitcher. She pitches a whole inning.
Yeah.
Gets killed.
Right.
And then they bring the other one back. And she may have pitched 2 innings.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they bring that first pitcher back in.
Right.
Which you can't do in baseball.
Right. But I have seen them move, like, let's say they want a different pitcher for this hitter.
Dave, I'm asking, they brought the old pitcher who was gone.
Yeah.
Brought her all the way back into the game.
Yeah.
She didn't play another position. She was out of the game for 2 innings.
Okay.
And she's back.
Yeah. No, I think you got a point there that there is something different.
Yeah.
That allows
that's different. And
it's not
so I was trying to figure out in college, can the men do that?
Yeah.
In baseball, men's baseball, is that the same role?
Yeah. I think it is different.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. And it might take, it's not a simple answer either.
The NHL playoffs begin today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is your boy in?
No, I think they came in third. They were leading for but they're in the playoffs. But they play tomorrow. I understand. It's a Florida. They play Tampa. It's Fort Lauderdale and Tampa.
Yeah, that's a tough game.
Well, it's a series. But
what I'm saying is that because they're both defending Stanley Cup champions recently.
Yeah. Toronto is in first place, and then Tampa, and then us. Yeah. So and then I think Dallas made it. Dallas, I think, is in it again this year. Of course, some of the usual suspects: Las Vegas, Denver. So Colorado. Hey,
this is a merger now, politics and sports, because Trump's little banter thing with Justin Trudeau, you guys could become the 51st state, and that would fix a lot of things, right? And he's just egging him on. And we saw the backlash at hockey games, right? A lot of Canadians were booing the U.S. national anthem. Mm-hmm. So I want to just dig deep. If this seriously ever did happen, that there was a merger of Canada with the United States, it would not be one state. There's no way Quebec is going to be part of a state entity. If they come in, they get statehood by themselves.
Yeah, I don't think Quebec would be. Oh, no, it would be by themselves.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's 51st. It's probably 51st, second, 53rd.
Oh yeah, They would still. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, because let me see. You got Calgary is all the way west, right?
They're in Alberta.
Vancouver.
Yeah, that's Alberta. Vancouver is the Pacific, right?
Right.
They would be a state capital.
Right.
Montreal would be, and I think Ontario and maybe either Winnipeg.
So who is Calgary next to Vancouver?
Yeah, I think Saskatchewan's in between.
Or British Columbia.
That's the Pacific coast. That's
and then Calgary.
Vancouver. Then no, I think you've got Saskatchewan. I don't know which. Alberta and Saskatchewan next year, and then Winnipeg, Manitoba. Those three probably would be a state by themselves. Then Ontario would be a state by itself.
But I think, what's the one next to British Columbia?
It could be Saskatchewan. Either that or it's Alberta.
Okay, I think it's the one that's north of Montana.
Yeah, both of them are.
I think, they're the ones that are kind of hinting they wouldn't mind being the 51st state.
Yeah, and
that would be weird, though.
Yeah.
That would be really weird. If that did happen, that would, to me, what scares me about that is it would be leading us towards a one world government.
Yeah.
But think of this. Okay, let's say you start getting Canada. Let's say Canada becomes part of the United States, okay? Then Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got Greenland and Canada. So we got all of that. All of that is then the United States of America. Okay. I
think, yeah. If you were to throw Greenland in, maybe with Nova Scotia.
Well, I'm saying all of Canada. I'm saying all of Canada,
right.
And then we get Greenland.
Yeah, then we own the continent except for Mexico.
Well, and South America too. But as we're going, as you know, I mean, just piece by piece. Then of course Mexico said, "Well, hey, you might as well take over us too."
Do we want to?
It's like that first Shrek where it's like, "Look at me, look at me."
Yeah, but no. By the way, yes, Alberta is further west than Saskatchewan.
Okay, Alberta's the one. Yeah.
But Saskatchewan hardly has I think Regina is their biggest, in Saskatoon, and they're like
Saskatoon.
Yeah, they're like the size of Broken Arrow, you know. So I think you would see Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and the Northwest Territory, maybe a state. Mm-hmm. Then you have Alberta and British Columbia be a state. So there's two. Ontario, third. Quebec, fourth. And then what do you do if you got a deal for Greenland, but you've also got to deal with, you got Nova Scotia.
Now, Nova Scotia belongs to Canada, don't they?
Right. It's separate from Quebec. Maybe they want to be like Quebec. I don't know. I'm part of the state of Quebec. But that's what I'm getting at here is for us to understand if this really does happen, I don't think it's one state. I think it's like 4 states.
Oh, yeah. Sure. No.
Yeah.
Because in the way it sounds right now, only one is really interested in joining us anyway.
Yeah, Saskatchewan's not getting squat. You know, there's no development going on there. Yeah. I mean, you know, and I don't know, maybe it's Edmonton that has all the oil resources. You know, it's
Alberta. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's why Alberta would be.
I mean, why? What is the name of the Edmonton hockey team? The Oilers.
The Oilers.
Yeah. Their oil economy is big there. So, yeah, Calgary and Edmonton are both in Alberta. So that's and then Vancouver. I mean, that's just up the road from Seattle.
Right.
It's really suburban Seattle, you know. But it's gorgeous. They had was it Summer Olympics there, or was it Winter Olympics?
I would think more winter because it's never warmed up there.
Right. Yeah. But we've had a Olympics at Vancouver.
Probably. I bet it's winter.
Yeah. I seem to remember the bobsled course.
Hey, we better.
Yeah, anyway, so that's going on. I'm trying to think. It seems like I'm forgetting something else, but
I'm sure there's some big news item that has hit probably since we've been on the air here. Let's see if there's anything new.
Putin just announced an Easter ceasefire, which means he wants to give the guys a day off. And he's encouraging Ukraine to be good Christians and give their guys a day off. But saying we will commence warfare again Monday morning. So anyway, Oh, Greg Popovich has a medical emergency. We'll find out about that. That's just within
Now,
the last
he's
hour.
not. He's not still the coach though.
Yeah, I don't know.
Down there.
But he's got a medical emergency.
Oh, this is something that I think is important. Did we talk about Harvard?
Yeah, a little
and the
bit.
funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I likened it to Bob Jones.
Right.
And where was the one?
Yeah, that's right. Because we went to Bob Jones. We didn't talk much about Harvard.
Right.
The reason we didn't get into the reason why we're pulling the funds, because of the anti-Semitism, basically anti-Jewishness, anti-Judaism, really, because I don't think anti-Semitic is a good term to use, because Palestinians are actually Semites also.
Yeah.
And, so how do you separate,
Just call it racism.
Well, no, I know. But I mean, how do you separate, anti-Middle Eastern or whatever, but anti-Semite kind of pulls, it would be like calling Hispanics and saying like anti-Hispanic is only somebody that doesn't like Mexican people.
Yeah.
When everything south of the border basically would be fall under that. But anyway, because of the anti-Semitism is the reason that we are trying to withhold funding from Harvard, and Harvard is not wanting to yield. They're not wanting to say, no, we're going to change our policies. What's been going on, everybody probably and should know that they've been attacking Jewish students and frightening Jewish students at the least.
Yeah.
And making life miserable. It's almost like being a black student in the 60s, 50s, and early 60s again. Only this time it's Jewish people. And it's like being in Europe in the 30s, in the early 30s, being in Germany, which I don't blame them for being afraid, because that Germany did not start out killing Jews and with gas chambers. It's something that grew and developed. And if we don't nip it in the bud now, it will continue to grow. And that's what Trump is trying to do in the Trump administration. I have neighbors and people on Facebook that I deal with daily that are pretty much, I don't think they see themselves as anti-Semitic, but they're so left-wing that because Trump is against it, they're for it.
Oh, yeah. It's Trump derangements.
It's Trump. Yeah, really. That's TDS is exactly what it is. And so they will support the Palestinian movement just because it's kind of an anti-Trump movement. And even if it's going against an innocent group of people like Jewish American students. And it's the silliest thing in the world. I mean, I don't know what gets into people's minds. It's just crazy.
Okay, here's my thought. I'm going to start out by giving an analogy. We have seen the ridiculous and abusive overuse of the claim of racism regarding anything having to do with a black person, right? I mean, you criticize a black politician, it's got to be his race and you're just racist, right? It can't be that he's actually a lousy, public service, right? I'm seeing some of the same recklessness in claims of anti-Semitism. Sometimes there are very legitimate criticisms that deserve to be discussed. And instead of treating it as legitimate and substantive, we're just going to an ad hoc trashing of the person making the claim that they are anti-Semitic. And that is a great harm to the memory of the Holocaust survivors. Okay, there are people who actually did suffer anti-Semitism, but for you to then exploit the term to try to silence your political opponents, we saw it with black. I'm starting to see some of it. Oh, and they're going to innuendo.
Kanye West. Yeah, Kanye. We had that discussion with Kanye West.
Yeah,
that he was going after a certain segment of an industry.
Yeah, business community. Right?
In the entertainment business community,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
fashion.
all of a sudden, he's anti-Semitic.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of thing. Because I've listened to some of, what's the gal's name? Black woman that was for a while on Daily Wire, and she got booted. Oh, why can't I think of her name? Now she's bigger than ever.
Oh, you're talking about Candace Owens?
Yes. Her YouTube channel is massive.
Really?
Now. Yeah, she's independent. And yeah, it's like Daily Wire is the one that's getting a drop in their viewership.
That's interesting.
But I've just seen Ben Shapiro sometimes going too far.
Yeah.
In that. And so I'm just saying, for the sake of the integrity of the concern, don't exploit and overuse it.
Right.
It's really happening.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree. And getting to Candace Owens, I really don't care for her myself. I think I don't know if you know who Kim Klacik is?
I've heard the name.
She's the Black woman that was running for Congress in Baltimore, for the Baltimore area.
Okay.
Black girl. Anyway, Candace Owens accused her of being a prostitute.
Okay.
And of all kinds of stuff. And so to me, Candace Owens is, I hate to say this, kind of the Republican version of an Al Sharpton.
Could she be another Ann Coulter?
Yeah. I guess Ann Coulter, but
See, that's an industry hazard, because being a talking head,
the gadfly.
Yeah, you got to come up with the most sensational things, because it really drives the viewership, listenership, your next book, all that. And Ann Coulter is one of those people who's been largely discredited by her extremes. And it's an industry hazard.
Yeah.
So
I think what killed Ann Coulter was her TDS. She just does not like Donald Trump. And I don't know what happened to her, what got her on the wrong side of Trump, but that really did it. It sent her off on the wrong path. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, but anyway, well, you're looking for something particular.
Yeah, a particular person I really have in mind is a guy named Douglas Murray.
Oh yeah.
And he was on Joe Rogan's podcast along with David Smith, a libertarian. And David Smith, I largely respect that guy. He, has been critical of some government decisions. Some of it has to deal with Gaza, some of it's other stuff. But he's being constantly trashed by Douglas Murray for the intentions of his heart.
Right.
And it's a cheap shot. And I'm just seeing it. Douglas Murray is doing damage to the cause of the Holocaust victims by claiming, this anti-Semitic. No, you just have a different policy.
Yeah, Douglas Murray can be like that. I've seen him he's a very smart guy. He's good.
He's manipulative.
But then he can go that way and you say, too far.
It was so obvious within about 3 minutes, I discredited him.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, good.
No, you can't conclude that. Well, he wanted to.
Uh-huh.
Because anything that's inconvenient to his narrative, he wants to believe in the worst possibility of his opponents.
Right. In response to Putin's offer of a ceasefire, the move appeared to be scoffed at by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who said shortly after that air raid alerts were ringing out across Ukraine. As for yet another attempt by Putin to play with human lives, at this moment, air raid alerts are spreading across Ukraine. Yeah, but see, that's alerts. Were any attacks actually? You could have set off the air raids.
Exactly.
And
then say, see, well, you just orchestrated that narrative.
Right.
Yeah. There's no good guys in that war.
No.
Both sides.
They're snakes. Both snakes. Yeah, that's what we got to get as far away from it as we can. And
evidently, Trump is about ready to be done. Now, there's a claim that just yesterday they signed rare minerals
with Ukraine.
Yeah. But it was a low level, kind of agency people worked out the details. There will be, if it truly does happen, there will be a ceremonial signing.
Right.
But I don't know. It's a mess. You can't force peace upon people who are hell-bent on war.
No, the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yeah. They're just hell-bent on war. They haven't suffered enough.
Well, honestly, the real problem is Germany and France.
And England.
Yeah, and England to a lesser degree. England really is not big enough. If Germany and France back down, Germany in particular, if Germany backs down and says, okay, we're done,
Right. Well, I say England because they're kind of a ringleader, because as soon as Zelensky had that blow up at the White House, Starmer called for Macron and Schultz. Come on up. We have to meet now.
Right. Yeah. They're an agitator, right? But if the other two, one of the other two, France or Germany, says, look, you're on your own, then England would fall in a second.
And I'm more convinced than ever that we need either a major revamping of NATO, or U.S. just needs to get out of it altogether.
Oh, yeah. We need to worry about
something.
We need a Western alliance from Argentina all the way up through Canada.
Yeah. Right now, Iceland is more important to us.
You mean Greenland?
No, Iceland.
Oh, Iceland.
Because they are a legitimate government.
Yeah, and it is more inhabited. It's funny. Greenland is the Iceland, and Iceland, they got them switched up when they were naming them.
Yeah.
They got them confused. But.
Somebody once said, actually just this last week I read it, whoever wins the next world war would be the person who can build drones the fastest. Drones are becoming such a big part of this. And you know who says they build them faster than anyone? Ukraine. They started their own drone industry.
That's funny, because one of the complaints that Zelensky has, one of the accusations is that the alarms are going off because they're seeing drones from Russia. Mm-hmm. So that's what he explained.
By the way, we've got like 5 more astronauts this week.
The girls?
Yes, the girl crew.
Like I said, they look good in their astronaut outfits. They're looking. I like this.
Yeah. Oh, and in other news, we are posthumously declaring.
Posthumously?
Yes. Declaring Edmund Hillary to be an astronaut, because he went just about as high up as the girls. It technically was not outer space.
Oh, wasn't it?
No.
They didn't even leave the stratosphere, the ionosphere,
they're claiming because it was so high up you couldn't breathe, wasn't enough oxygen. And that's what Sir Edmund Hillary said when he climbed Mount Everest.
Now, whose rocket did they go in?
It was the girlfriend of Bezos went in his rocket. Oh, that's how she got it.
It was Bezos. Okay.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing here is the real space exploration, the real advancement in technology. I mean, it's Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
SpaceX, right? The amusement park is going to be Bezos. Because these are amusement park rides.
Right.
Nobody's flying it from within the ship. There's no Neil Armstrong trying to land the lunar module.
So you just sit.
You just sit. It's all automated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's the Space Needle. Boy, you go up, you come down.
They are really getting it. They're getting blasted by the left more than anybody. And I'm saying, hey, if you got the money, it's just that jealousy. It's that envy. To me, listen, if you got the money and you want to go into space, do whatever, spend it, do it. If you can do it, do it. You're just a bunch of jealous, bitter, envious people. Yeah. I could care less if Katy Perry wants to be shot in a rocket, but the outcry with these women attacking them and everything, it's just weird. I don't like Katy Perry as much as the next person.
Yeah.
I really,
but you think of it, the first time I rode Space Mountain at Disney World, from the time I got in line to the time I exited the building, because it's indoor roller coasters, what it is, I spent about 10 times as much on that ride, Space Mountain, as they actually spent in space. Their entire ride was 11 minutes.
Yeah.
They're an astronaut, don't you know?
Yeah.
11 minutes.
Yeah, but Dave, see, you're doing the same thing. Others making fun of it. To me, they haven't tried to make any more out of it than it is. It's other people that are trying to make fun of them for doing it.
Well, I will say cable news.
Let's put it this way. They've gone much further than you have.
Yeah.
And I have, right?
Yeah. Cable news blew it out of proportion.
Exactly. That's not their fault.
You're right. Oh, I'm sure they had a PR machine going.
Nah, I don't know. Maybe one or two of them, but I can't. I'm not going to blast all of them for it. I like to be fair, you know. They do that to us all the time, you know.
I think they selected Gayle King for a specific purpose. You got to get a cable news journalist.
Would that begin with, okay. For a cable news journalist, okay. I was going the other way. I was going totally token.
Yeah, no, I think they just wanted, cable news to treat this seriously.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and you're part of their clique, So
and it helps if it's a black cable news person. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and it's not mankind they're doing it for. It's for humankind. Yeah. See, we got another lesson in lecture in political correctness out of it. My 10th grade, it was 11th grade grammar teacher, Norma Nelson, teacher of the year one year. She taught us very clearly. There's the neutral gender, the masculine gender, the feminine gender. Oftentimes, the neutral gender and the masculine gender are the same. And it's these journalists and these college, political correctness people that need to go back to high school grammar class because they want to reinvent things for their political agenda that are centuries old parts of the great English language. It's a good language. I don't think we need to change it for their political outcomes.
I agree.
So,
hey, we're almost at 3 hours.
Yeah,
I think we better shut her down.
All right.
Hey, thank you guys. We will talk to you next week, Lord willing, and the creek don't dry.